We have an agenda tonight to go over briefly the agenda. We're going to review the minutes. We're going to talk about Ruth P. Ruth P. here.
No, but Barbara L. is here.
Barbara L. is here. We're going to talk about Lori W. Lori W. is here. Welcome, both of you. We're going to talk about Nature's Wilderness. We're going to talk about modifications to the land use ordinance for mass gathering. And then we're going to entertain a motion to adjourn. So let's talk about the minutes first. I printed them off, as I normally don't do. And it said that Strzok called the meeting to order. I believe that was Mr. Pierce, was it not? Okay.
It also said that Jeff Sanborn and Jim Dolph was there too.
Mr. Sanborn was not here. Mr. Dolph was not here.
Gary was here.
Gary Brown was here. There's some other folks here, but it's all good. And then the rest of it seemed to be okay.
I have two things.
Okay.
One, it said that the CEO's report was attached, and I did not find it attached when
I acquired that report and will attach it to the final minutes.
Great.
I also will attach the document that we gave to Nature's Wilderness, asking them to sign that they were not going to be engaged in certain activities, which they did not agree to sign at that meeting.
So, and then, I don't know if I should be sitting here or out there, or quite what limbo I'm in on this, but I heard Jeff, the engineer,
Yeah.
say that quite possibly with a new traffic study at 100 cars per hour, there would be a turnout lane needed. And that was the first we heard of anything about a turnout lane or problems with traffic running in it. I would,
Whether or not that's referenced.
I'd like to see it.
Matt, did you remember anything about turnout lane?
I do not remember that part of that, because it didn't really, it might have just gone over my head. I didn't remember.
I mean, I kind of remember, but I don't remember what he was talking about at the time.
It's more than likely it was said, I didn't catch it.
Yeah.
But
Well, we have one of three options. We can suspend the vote on the minutes until I have a chance to review the video, because we have a video now, so we can review the video. We can leave it out because I don't remember if it was there.
I don't think it's that important to take your time to review it.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we, in today's minutes, why don't we note that Member Pierce asked
have it added to the minutes.
to have a reference to Mr. Amos, A-M-O-S, his comment regarding turnout lanes to the 10:10 minutes. Just note that for the record, and we'll just go ahead and vote on the minutes as presented with the accompanying document. Yeah. So heard a motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. I heard a second. All those in favor. We're good. All right. And if she just doesn't second it, he can second it.
Amended.
Yeah, as amended. I will forward those amendments to Danielle for posting. We accomplished number one. The next one is Ruth P., who's being represented by Barbara L., was it?
Correct.
All right, so let me set the stage for those folks who, so this is the second time that this has come before the board. It came before the board a few months ago. I was absent, so I believe Joe handled the issue, so he may add a few things. But I received an email from Ruth P. asking some questions. I forwarded that to the board, and so folks could see the question before we walked in the door. I'll just read it. I may summarize a little bit, but it asks for clarification regarding non-conforming lots, and it asks 3 questions. The first question is, if in 1995 a person who owned a non-conforming lot was forced to sell part of his or her lot to the state for a road project, is it correct to assume the lot would still be non-conforming even though it was reduced in size? So, I'll just read all 3 of them. Second question is, if through a civil lawsuit on a boundary issue, a non-conforming lot decreased in size, is it correct to assume it would lose its non-conforming status? Would there be an amount or percentage of land to which it would have to be reduced to lose its non-conforming status? For example, if it lost 50 square feet, would it still lose its non-conforming status? Last question, 3. If through a civil lawsuit on a boundary issue, if a non-conforming lot lost a road to the abutter but retained a right-of-way, would it still have its non-conforming status? Those are the 3 questions which, as we all heard, multiple subparts to 2 of them. So I believe that Ruth, who is represented by Barbara, wants us to answer these questions. And I assume that it has to do with some actual piece of dirt somewhere in the town of Baldwin.
It's lot 22, which, of map 6, which abuts, lot 23, owned by Mr. Buckley.
Okay. So the first question, Joe, do you want to add anything more in terms of historical information?
No, I think it's fine going at it like this.
Okay. So my understanding is that there's been a ongoing dispute between at least 2 landowners, one of them Ruth P. and one of them somebody named Buckley, and these questions deal with that dispute?
Yes.
Okay. And has there been like lawsuits and stuff about this?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Well, I know our property has been surveyed, and I believe Mr. Buckley has at least had a sketch. I don't know anything more about Mr. Buckley's.
Okay.
And our surveyor has met with her surveyor and Mr. Buckley, trying to negotiate a
Resolution.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Does the CEO have any information about this?
I have information, yes.
Okay. So, and I'm not even sure we can answer these questions because these may have to be resolved in the court of law rather than in front of this board. I'm not sure we're not an adjudicatory
Right.
board, so.
We just wanted to know what West Baldwin ordinances would say about it.
Yeah, but we represent all of Baldwin.
Right,
I
well.
get John I get sensitive. I'm from North Baldwin, so I get sensitive.
We really don't.
You should.
Yeah, we were brought into the fold a few years ago. So, Wes, what kind of information do you have about this?
I don't think that history has anything to do with non-conforming lot. In this case, currently the ordinance, prescribes in that rural district that a lot should be 2 acres to build on. Therefore, the definition of non-conforming is it's less than 2 acre. How much less than 2 acres, or if it changes in size and remaining under 2 acres, it's still it's still a non-conforming lot. It doesn't change the status really.
So is
But if
this,
it's reduced for some reason, doesn't that change the status of the lot from a non-conforming lot to a lot? And if it loses its non-conforming, designation, then it cannot be built on.
so let's talk about definitions first. Because
Okay.
I think that's super important. So we have a piece of dirt. What did you say it was? It was lot
22, which is 38 acres, and lot 23, which is, according to our, deductions, is .38.
Okay, and what map?
Map
Six.
6.
Map 6, so we have 22 and 23. Alright, so where are we on? We're on 117?
We're just before the bridge, the depot bridge, and he's just before Estes.
Okay, alright. So we have, so you're asking about 23, for .38. So, when was lot 23 created?
Well, I think it's been in existence for a while, but, the controversy is over,
So a while can mean dinosaurs, or it can mean, grass. So when you say a while, was it like 2 years, 10 years, 30 years?
who owned it before? Who owned it before, do you know?
The lot was sold to Lester Locke, I think, as one of 4 lots back in
I don't have.
'70s.
Yeah.
Could be.
Probably.
I'm not quite sure exactly when, but I know that that's how Lester Locke, since we've known him.
And the town sold it to,
No, he wanted to just know how long.
Yeah, so when the
it
lot was created is a super important fact.
Yeah.
Because if the lot was created
What
before
was the date on that?
March 75.
March 1975, he always knows it, I never know.
Oh, well before that.
yes.
Okay,
before that.
so if it's pre-March 1975, then it predates the ordinance, which has an impact, okay?
Right.
So, so that's important. So, let's say alright, so then the next question is, it's clearly a non-conforming lot, because a conforming lot means that it meets the definition of a lot, the setbacks and the area under the ordinance. So a non-conforming lot is a single lot of record, 23 is lot of record, at the effective date or adoption or amendment of this ordinance, so March 75, which does not meet the lot area per dwelling unit, lot area or frontage requirement of the district in which it's located. You don't mean in any district, so it doesn't matter. Is allowed solely because it was in lawful existence at the time of this ordinance or subsequent amendment took effect. So what you're telling me so far is you have a non-conforming lot that's number 23. Okay. Everybody with me? Alright. So then your question is, something happened to the non-conforming lot.
When the state, built a new bridge,
Okay.
they took some of the land, or sold, what's his name, sold it to the state at the
Okay.
time,
So,
at
so
their
lot,
request.
so lot 23, you said it's .38, is that its current size or before?
We believe that's its current size.
Okay, so it was bigger before part of it was taken for a public project, a road.
Right. And I
Okay.
believe when the town sold it to Buckley, it was advertised as .6 acres.
Okay, so, and I'm just going with your
But it
facts
was
here, I don't know
also
if they're true, but.
The sale, according to the, shopper's guide, it was as is where is. Is that correct?
Well, it doesn't matter, that doesn't
Yeah,
matter,
no.
it's,
Okay.
all we're dealing with this side. So, it used to be .6, which was non-conforming, whether it's .6 or more. It became .38, still non-conforming, so, what's the question?
I believe I already know the answer to that part of it.
Okay,
It's the other two questions.
okay. So now, if through a civil lawsuit on a boundary issue, a non-conforming lot decreased in size, is it correct to assume it would lose its non-conforming status? What's the boundary dispute?
The boundary dispute involves part of our driveway and part of his land.
So, did a judge say, is this dispute, like, it's a dispute, but it hasn't been resolved?
It has not gone to the court.
Okay. So, if this dispute is settled, will it increase or decrease in size?
It should decrease the size of his lot.
Okay.
I mean, we're really ready to, we want to negotiate with him, but there's just no negotiating going on right now, so, you know, talking as we are right now, it would decrease the size.
Yeah. So, I don't know why that would affect the non-conforming status, I don't know.
Well, the only thing, I'm seeing the other side. I hadn't seen it until I looked at the definition. And it's a single lot of record which at the effective date of the adoption or amendment of this ordinance does not meet the lot area. And this is less than the lot was at the effective date of the ordinance. And so I suddenly understood why the question is being asked. The obvious answer to the question was, well, it's still a non-conforming lot, it's even less of a non-conforming lot. But I look at it and I'm wondering, because it's at the effective date of, or adoption, amendment of this ordinance does not meet the lot area for drawing unit lot coverage requirement.
Well, what happens to non-conforming lots that change?
Yeah. I don't know. When they become less. I mean.
But you can't create a non-conforming lot. So once you, so the lot exists.
Right.
If in fact they're right, which again, I don't know if you're right, I'm just assuming you're right, then the lot exists. So if it got bigger, if it got 3 acres, it would no longer be a non-conforming lot.
Or if it was a half-acre non-conforming lot and they added a 1/4 acre, it's still a non-conforming lot.
It's still a lot of record,
And
it's
it's
just a different
still-
size.
But this is less than the lot of record.
Right.
It was created small, it was through their own hardship, but maybe because if the state took the land, did the state take the land by eminent domain? Did whoever the owner was offer to him, to the state saying, oh yeah, take my land, I want the money.
Yeah.
See, that's where I'm hung up. And I didn't see that till I sat down here tonight looking at it.
So 5.1 talks about non-conformance.
And somewhere I do recall that you can't make a non-conforming lot more non-conforming.
Yeah, so the purpose of this article is to regulate non-conforming lots, uses and structures as defined in this ordinance, such that they can be reasonably developed, maintained, repaired, or changed to less non-conforming uses or to conforming uses. And so, non-conforming lots, 5.2, says you can build, talks about if you have two contiguous non-conforming lots, they become one in certain situations. Different people own 23 and 22, right?
Correct, we
Yeah,
own
okay.
22.
Structures, contiguous lots again, uses, non-conforming uses, 5.3. Enlargement of non-conforming use of land, change in use. Changes in, 5.6, changes in non-conforming lots, structures, and uses. Upon review of the Board of Appeals, the non-conforming aspect of a lot, structure, or use may be changed. Upon the finding of the Board of Appeals that such change will bring the lot, structure, or use closer to conformance with the ordinance, or will make the non-conforming aspect no worse. I don't think that applies.
No,
And we're done. That's the end of non-conforming.
I think I'd want some sort of a legal opinion about the way the state bought the land and made it a more non-conforming lot. I don't think you can make a lot more non-conforming. I think if it's done involuntarily by eminent domain, that might be one thing, but if it's done voluntarily, that would be another.
Yeah, I just don't know the answer.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know the
Okay, that's
answer. I mean, it's a pretty in the weeds question. And it doesn't look like our ordinance tells us the answer, that's where we start.
Okay,
But I mean, I think your issue, we don't allow people to make a non-conforming lot voluntarily less conforming. That's true, right? I mean, that's true. Yeah, you can't sell half your non-conforming lot to somebody else and make it smaller. That's true. Yeah. So, but if it's done involuntarily, I'm not sure the same concept would apply.
I don't know the legal status, but common sense says if the state took the land, it's like eminent domain, and therefore the landowner had no option or no control over it.
But could the state take it by eminent
Yeah,
domain?
it would stand to reason, but
is it taken by eminent domain if there is a financial compensation, is that?
yeah, you get paid
Yeah,
fair market
We all
value.
did, everybody down in that area, when they rebuilt the road, their lot, at the time, Lester Locke's lot, part of Estes, well, it wasn't Estes then, it was Jewett, and then our lot, they just took a little pinch off of each one of
Right.
our lots to make the road wider and change the curve.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't think we have enough information to answer number 2. and B, I'm not even sure what the answer is. And I think we could both argue both sides of that. And I think a lot of it depends on whether it was voluntarily made more non-conforming. That's a huge issue. And then the last one was, if through a civil lawsuit, on a boundary issue, if a non-conforming lot lost a road to an abutter, but retained a right-of-way, would it still have its non-conforming status? I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is yes, unless they give it away, and then you have questions of whether they did it involuntarily or voluntarily. But if it's already a non-conforming lot, I mean, just based on this, I think the answer is yes, but the devil's in the details, you know?
No, I kind of agree with you. I would just like to say one thing. I know this lot was grandfathered in, lot 23 was grandfathered in. But since then, there has been so much change in the neighborhood, or in the area, with Estes having his trucking company there, that even though it may be buildable based on where the house is going to be, maybe even where the septic tank and the water are going to be, I'm not sure of that right now, but it doesn't really make it a buildable lot, because the pollution, the noise, all those things have increased tremendously since even definitely since 1975. I spent every summer there. I'm 70 years old, and I spent every summer there when I was a child. And, you know, the big excitement was hearing the Canadians go over the railroad tracks and lose their suspension. And now I was out in the garden. We have a small organic farm there. And I was out in the garden working on my sister's side, which is closer to the river road. And I could just smell the pollution coming through. At 7 o'clock, no, not even 7 o'clock, at 6 o'clock in the morning, you can hear Estes start up his truck. And then last night, you know, it's gotten darker a lot earlier, and I went up to bed, and I noticed the light. Where my bedroom is, I hadn't really noticed the lights before. But all of a sudden, because the leaves have fallen, there's a tremendous amount of light coming from Estes' property. And then if you look at it, Estes' property is up here, okay? And he's got his trucks parked towards, let's say, towards Depot Bridge, if you need a direction. Buckley's property is right down here. If one of those trucks should let loose, the brakes let loose, it's going to go right down onto basically where that house is going to be. And I just hope that if people do consider this, I'm going to New Mexico for 4 or 5 months, and my sister's there now. But I do hope that if you do decide to consider his permit, if it comes to that, I do hope you walk through the property and see exactly what is where this house is going to be located.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that. I guess the response I would give is, first off, it wouldn't be us to review the building permit. It would be the CEO.
Because I thought the resource ordinance was involved in it.
I'm not aware that we would be reviewing that. And two, our jurisdiction ends with what's in the ordinance. So if the ordinance says they can do it with the setbacks and the non-conforming and all those, and the other aspects of it, we don't have any authority to tell somebody, sure, this lets you do it, but it's stupid to do.
I understand that you know, Buckley's getting himself into trouble, but
they let, the thing about it, I guess where I'm going is, the ordinance lets people make bad choices if they want to, and whether it's a bad choice or not, I don't know, but the ordinance gives people the right to do what may be perceived as something stupid on their land, as long as it,
But you do have your preamble, which I know is not a legal, document, it has no real influence on the laws, but you do have a preamble, and the preamble mentions all those things,
yeah,
right in your preamble. And if you can't back your preamble up, I don't know, I think your ordinance is a waste of time.
yeah.
That's a big,
Yeah, I hope it's not a waste
that's a
of
huge
time.
statement.
I've spent a few hours working here on this, I hope it's not too big of a waste of time.
No, I realize that's a
But
huge
I know what
statement.
you're saying, it's that, you know, I get it, and I understand your frustration, but I also know that if it's okay by the ordinance, and the town has said, this is what we wanna live by, it's not up to us to say something different, so.
I understand that.
I just want you to appreciate both sides of it.
Yeah.
Sorry we couldn't give you more guidance or clearer answers, but, yeah.
Yeah, well, one more thing, I had asked the question quite a while ago, and then I came back and I said, no, that's not right. And the only reason why that this, permit would come to build a house there, if it passes the Saco River Corridor Commission, and they give them a green light, and then he comes to, the code enforcement officer for a permit. I think that the last time I talked with you, you said that, couldn't issue a permit until it passed the planning board because of the resource protection, because it's so close to the, stream.
Yeah, I wasn't here that day.
No, you weren't,
Do you remember
No.
that discussion?
but that was
I remember
clarified
that.
in one of the meetings, and they said yes, and the only reason why it would go to the planning board is because of, not shoreline zoning per se, but resource protection. Is
Yes,
that,
I do remember this discussion, it goes back, this is like almost a year.
yeah, yeah.
So it takes me a little, searching through the files, yes. He would be the one to answer that question.
The process and the answer is the same as why Lori Ward is here. Our shoreline zoning was changed last year in March.
Okay,
And, the ruling is a special exception in the shoreland, document, it's on page 32. And, if it was in a shoreland resource.
let's get that. That's not something I keep in my back
I
pocket.
thought I had my thing somewhere. I have mine right here,
Yeah, okay.
Page 32,
yeah.
I do kind of remember.
Yeah,
Wherever I am,
you're a better person than I.
out in the woods, chopping trees down.
So now that it's in resource protection, it's a planning board issue, whether it's buildable or not buildable. But the special exception says that if the land is vacant and unused, and was back to when the zoning was changed, which would have been before last year, before 2018, then the rules of whatever zoning it was in at that time is the one that rules. So before March of 2018, it was rural district and didn't have a shoreline or resource protection. So the decision made on, what zone it was in prior to March of 2018.
What, can you tell me where it says that? I read your note before, and I'm looking on page 32, and I can't actually see it.
So, it looks like you look under E, special exception.
Yeah, that's where I'm looking. I don't see anything about reversion to prior district.
That's a two, I think he's referring to two. So I have it underlined, just. He's talking about two, it says the lot on which the structure is proposed is undeveloped and was established and recorded in the registry of deeds in the county in which the lot is located before the adoption of the RPD.
Right, that's one of several things, one of several conditions, all of these things need to be met. It doesn't, I don't think that stands on its own.
Right.
Reversion.
So
So basically, how I interpret that is that the planning board's role is to agree, yes, that's true, I released the land from the resource protection, and therefore it was a rural district, and therefore it's under the authorization of the CEO to decide.
All right, so I have to orient myself on that, so, all right, so we've got, so we're looking at section,
I think it is.
D, what is it, 16E. So 16E, 16 is under administration, so we've got 16 is under administration, so 16.
So what you're saying basically is that because they, assume they applied for a building permit before March of 2018,
It doesn't matter when the permit is applied for, it was the land, established before, 2018, and was it vacant and not being developed upon?
Okay, so the administration says, it talks about code enforcement, Board of Appeals, planning board. And it says on B, permit required. So as of the date of this ordinance, a permit is required for essentially anything to do with the structure. That is more than, except for replacing culverts and some other stuff. So permit's required, so there's a permit application.
Let me see if I can look for permit. Page 11. We have this chart. The chart, principal structure, residential, under, stream protection is a planning board number 4, and under resource protection planning board number 9, so we look up number 4, number 9, we have those here each year.
Okay, so number 4. Number 4 says, provided that a variance from the setback requirement is obtained from the Board of Appeals.
I think number 9 is the more appropriate one.
I am now on page 12, under table, land uses in the shoreline zoning. The following notes are applicable to the land use table on the following pages. So this is like a cheat sheet. And then we're going down to 13, which says principal structures and uses, 1 and 2 family residential, including driveway. And it says SP or RP. So if it happens in the SP district, then Planning Board 4, which is actually Board of Appeals. If it happens in RP, this is RP, Resource Protection, is that where?
It is now, currently,
Yeah.
yes.
PB 9, which says, single-family residential structures may be allowed by special exception only in accordance with the provisions of 16E, this is where we started on this adventure, special exceptions. 2-family residential structures are prohibited. So then when we go to 16E, so a permit is given, a permit is requested, and 35 days after a permit is done, the code enforcement officer, planning board shall notify that it's complete. Depending. The applicant's has the burden of proving. And it says special exceptions in addition to the criteria in 16D, which is like, if, health, safety, pollution, that kind of stuff. Accepting structure setback requirements. The planning board may approve a permit for a single-family residential structure in the RP district, provided the applicant demonstrates all of the following, 1 through 5. application on the property outside of the RP lot is undeveloped and established. 2 is the one he's pointing to. The structure proposed is on a lot which is undeveloped, located before the adoption of the RP district, which was. All proposed building and sewage disposal systems are and has some requirements. Total footprint is limited to a maximum of 1,500 square feet. So yeah, so if somebody wants to build in the RP zone, they would submit an application. And we would have to review that request for an application under these rules.
But you're saying because the lot was in existence before March 2018, that they don't have to do that. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, because before that time, it was not resource protection shoreline zone.
No,
Yeah,
I disagree.
That's wrong.
In order to qualify for the exception, it had to be in existence. So then that's one of the requirements of the exception. So then they'd have to meet all the other requirements of the exception as well.
And it's the planning board's purview.
Yeah, I think it's the planning board's purview though, not the CEO's.
Okay.
Under E, it says the planning board may approve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, but the thing about it is we don't have the permit in front of us.
Right.
When it comes, it may not really be what it needs to be, and he may be able to do it without us. Until you have the permit application, you don't know which road it goes down. You guys are kind of asking us hypotheticals.
Well, I mean, we're living in a hypothetical situation right now. So.
Right. That was good education. I was unaware of that part of our job.
That was fun.
We thank you.
Anything else that we can do for you guys today?
No.
Not that we've done anything other than say
yeah.
some words, but
So are you saying, after reading that and everything, that it may not have to go through the planning board?
It has to go.
if it is a 16D exception issue, it would come through the planning board. Whether it goes under that exception or not, I have no idea.
Yvonne, David's a lawyer. He's cutting out this exception for himself, so that he doesn't get blamed if something happens.
Oh, I know
down the
that.
road. So you're not gonna nail him down.
No.
You've
No.
gone as far as you can.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm aware.
Okay.
That doesn't mean I can't try.
Yeah, I understand.
She should have been.
That's why I go home and go to bed.
Rather than
I'm
here.
so tired after this. No, anything else that we can chat about, or are you guys
No,
good?
I thank you very much. We thank
I appreciate it. Good luck in your, working out with Mr. Buckley.
Thank you.
I know it's been going on for a while, so I appreciate it. All right, well, thank you for coming. It's always nice to have visitors. Lori W. All right, so this was another email, through the CEO. And I thought it set the issue out as well as I could set it out, so I just forwarded it on to the board. The CEO says that Ms. Ward's family wants to buy Lot 1-D, Map 2. Look at you, you're like all set, ready? Alright, so what part of town are we talking about? We're talking Map 2, 1D. So to orient
Well, it's right next
ourselves.
to Fuller's gravel
Yeah, right next to Fuller's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mountain, not pit. Remember exactly what it is.
Right, okay.
It's not a pit. It's a mountain.
Hill removal.
Hill removal.
that lot totally flat? I
It's
can
not.
picture in my mind that it is, or.
It's not. It starts out fairly close to road level and then it slopes down
Yeah,
into a,
into a swamp,
into
sort of
a
area.
swamp.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And again, this piece of property, is largely in resource protection now.
Yeah, yeah.
Following under the same, as the previous issue, the special exception E16, and that now it's a resource protection, but prior to last year it wasn't.
Okay, that's what I was
The
gonna say,
road
it was in
frontage.
rural.
The road frontage is not in resource protection, is it?
The road frontage is not. In fact, a very small portion
Very close, yeah.
of this property is not in resource protection.
Okay.
But then there's a 100-foot setback. It's appearing to me, for as much as I can ascertain with my rudimentary tools and using your GIS mapping on town sites, that Meg.
Sure, you may approach.
A survey.
First event.
A survey here that was done in 2010, of this lot. And this top portion here, this whole section here is wet. It's all swampy and wet.
Yep.
And then these contour lines show where it begins to come up the hill, and then, right here, there's a access, a little driveway access here. It's blocked by some stones and some large rocks. And then you come in and there's a clearing, and that clearing is somewhere like in this vicinity.
Yeah.
But as far as I can tell, if you come in this entryway and just go fairly straight, there's about 400 feet from here to here. You take back 100 feet here from sitting back from the road, right, the setback requirement, and then 250 feet here, you got about 50 feet that may be buildable. So I'm hearing what Wes has had to say about the request to a planning board for building in this area. And I guess I'm trying to get a little clarification. If we have this like 50-foot spot, our intent at this time is to really just to build a large storage barn, which would exceed 1,500 feet. But I think maybe that might fit in this really narrow 50-foot spot. But it's hard to say exactly. It's not laid out exactly on the GIS mapping. We have to get like a whole survey done that really defines exactly where this really narrow spot is. We haven't purchased the lot, so I just want to get a little clarification on this whole process before we, make a purchase.
Do you have a map of the,
Old one,
how about a new one,
up on the wall.
up on the wall, and
And I can show
the
you,
old one? You have
Old one showing it was not shoreline.
Yeah, it wasn't even shoreline back in, prior to this.
well, Wes and I were looking at.
Right on.
I
Okay,
Wes
okay.
did, but I'm not.
I get it.
Wes thought that the property was there, but after really looking at this, I think it's here. I think it's this, I think it goes from.
Carl Brunel's right there, so,
Right,
so it would be,
it goes right here, I think.
I think that's probably right, yeah.
So it's a lot of this white part here, but it's still a pretty minimal.
Walked on one, I've walked
Yeah,
next to it. and
Oh, have
have
you? So you know where that open part is.
Yeah.
We originally thought, okay, everything that's wet, obviously is not buildable, but we didn't realize at that time that all of this green setback area was not buildable.
The problem,
When did that lot get created? Who are you buying it from?
I have get the guy's name that we're
isn't it Van
buying
Hertel's
from, but it
property?
was, in 2010, that
So the
survey
Van
was done, and I
Hertel-
think, yes, right.
So
Van
then it is a
Hertel.
question of when it was created.
It was
believe-
created recently.
Yeah, that's,
He bought it, Patel may have maybe bought it in 12
I think there's a big piece of
or
property
something like
there.
that.
he bought a large piece and divided it up.
I think, I mean,
Right.
I'm assuming that's it.
I think he may have purchased it as two pieces. I think this survey was done by the previous owner, and then he bought it as these two pieces, these two
Okay.
lots. I believe, I'm not certain, but that's the feedback that I got from the realtor.
Yeah,
But we're just interested in the one, but we were originally under the, they didn't disclose that this was in resource protection, so I'm just trying to get an understanding about how that works and what the.
so how do we determine in feet and inches where the resource protection?
I don't think that's necessary. If we go to the rule that before last year was not resource protection, then it doesn't apply because of the vacant lot.
Well, let's slow down for a second,
Okay.
because, so how do we, so let's say it applies, just for argument's sake. How does a landowner determine exactly where that green buffer exists on the land? Like in terms of inches and feet, because.
That's my question right there.
Well, there's two thoughts. One, blow up the map so you can scale it and get a little bit more accurate scale.
Yeah.
Number two, those maps are not considered exactly accurate, so you can't depend on that well.
So if you can't depend on the map, how does a landowner know where that green and blue exists?
Probably the next common sense step would be go to DEP and let's solve the problem and answer the question.
So do they have a super accurate map at DEP about where these things are?
I do not know, but I believe most of these maps are built by electronics from the air.
I can tell you that I went on your GIS, on your town website,
Yeah.
your GIS map, and there is a measuring tool on there, right? So I did measure it with the tool that you guys have, in one section where it looks like it might be where the entry is, down to the very edge
Why don't
here.
you show Dave?
But you're gonna need
And
something,
it's
I mean.
about 400 feet, but I don't know how accurate that is. So here's the blue line, and that's the measurement, and there's the 404 feet. So this is where the entrance is to the property. This is the only area over here, small, very small portion of it might be buildable. So if it's 400 feet from
So what's
here
the
to
shaded
here,
area?
this is the wet.
Yeah.
This is the wet.
And then.
And this is everything that's not wet, including the 250-foot setback and the 100-foot setback from the road. So 400 feet minus 250 minus another 100 leaves about 50 feet.
Yeah.
So a pretty narrow swath.
But is this, I mean, I guess, does anybody know, is this data backed up by something that the government has? Like, if I'm gonna buy a piece of property and the bank's gonna, a bank, assuming I go to a bank, they're gonna say, well, is it a buildable lot? And somebody with some unique knowledge is going to have to sign a document saying, yes, this is a buildable lot. I mean, like, the bank's not gonna, I mean, no offense, but the
Right,
bank's not gonna look on the phone. And I don't mean it that way.
No,
I just mean, like, they're gonna want something in writing, signed by some person, and I just don't know who that.
And I don't know how we say she can build a theoretical house on the land without seeing, she wants to put it in a particular place.
Yeah, I think she's looking more for process. Like, how can I figure out whether I can do this, and I'll take the risk. She's saying, I'll take the risk, but
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys asked, how we do this process, because I don't know either.
I think you're on the wrong page. What we're looking for is for you to make a decision that the exception rule applies, and therefore, the resource protection wasn't
exceptions are discretionary. I don't think they're, you look at that 16D, is it a must or is it discretionary? The planning board may approve, so it's a discretionary decision.
Okay,
The lot which the structure is proposed is undeveloped, was established and recorded in the registry of deeds in the county in which the lot is located before the adoption of the RPD. This RPD or any RPD? It would be this.
Which was March of last year, right?
Right, so that's a lot of record that,
I believe it is.
yeah. You better make sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
right, yeah.
because it's not a lot of record on the tax map, it's a lot of record in terms of deed, right? I mean, it's the deed.
Right, I believe Hertel
okay.
purchased it as this lot.
Yeah.
I don't think he,
All proposed buildings, sewage disposal systems, and other improvements are located on a natural slope of less than 20%, located outside the floodway of 100 years flood. The total footprint of all structures is limited to a maximum of 1,500.
but that's within the setback, right? That's within the setback.
That's in order to build it all.
So the maximum that we could build on the lot at all, even in that, if there's a white section that is buildable, that is also limited to 1,500 square
Look at
feet?
page 14.
Well, but if you can build outside, so if you can build outside the RP, then that's what you're limited to.
Right, so, yeah, so then.
Because that's the first one, there's no location on the property other than a location within the RP where a structure can be built.
Oh, okay, so
So if you
if
can
there is
build
a location,
outside, then.
so if there is a 50 by 100 foot spot, then I have to just be able to figure out exactly where that 50 by 100 foot spot is that how it goes?
Item B1 on page 14, it's saying in a shoreland zone, which is 250 feet, the first 100 feet you can't build, but after that, from 100 to 250, you can build. Now, resource protection is created from the shoreland zone, which is is saying, and the resource protection may be quite a distance further than shoreland, but saying in that resource protection, you can build back 250 feet. So I'm assuming going from water's edge, go back 100 feet in shoreland zone, you can build from water edge, go back 250 feet in resource protection, and then you can build.
Yeah, the high water too. You gotta take in the high water.
I didn't follow that, I'll be honest.
So in shoreland zoning, which is like a great pond, like Sebago, right, or you have to be 100 feet back to build. But in resource protection, you have to be 250 feet back.
From that same water's edge
From that
created
same
the
water,
shoreline zone.
high water
Yeah.
edge,
Yeah.
right? But okay, so I was interested in that little bit that you read, was you can only get a permit to build within the resource protection zone if there's no other place to build. Did I hear that correctly?
You can only get an exception to the structure setback requirements for a single family residence if there's no place outside the RP on the lot to build one. So it's a little bit more precise than what you said.
Okay,
And that's page 32, 16D. I mean, my problem, and I mean, it's hard for me to conceptualize these things. The problem is, I feel like you're too early in the process, and I know you don't want to buy it unless you can do this. I understand that, but like until I see a map with, and that's why I asked about how you figure out where that green stuff is.
right.
Until I see a map with that green, the blue and the green stuff on it, and the road, and the setbacks, until I see that on a piece of paper, and have it all defined for me, it's hard for me to really visualize it, I'm just not that visual.
If you accept the rule that prior to the date that the zoning was changed is effective in this case, then the decision is based on what zoning was before, and since it's not resource protection, then there's not a conflict of where is the green or where is
Yeah, I
not
don't
the green.
see that, Wes, like, where does this say it relates back? I don't see where it says, I see where we can say, that there's an exception, but I don't see where it says it reverts back. Maybe I'm just missing it.
You can't take an ordinance or law and just pick out one section and say it means something without looking at all the other language around it, and that's what's happening here.
Do you see where, if you can point us to where it relates back, I see the exception language.
Right on page 32, right at the bottom.
32,
Right at the bottom, number
that's,
2.
that's to qualify for the exception, is if it was undeveloped and it was recorded before the adoption of the RPD.
Yeah.
Then it's one of 5 factors that if they all exist, then the planning board can consider a special exception. Yeah, I don't think that's a revert back, Wes, I don't.
Okay.
So, I have a question. I just wanna make sure I've got
Your
your
decision.
situation.
Your decision.
You wanna buy this property, you haven't made an offer or anything, you don't wanna buy it unless you know you can build this on it, right?
Right. We wanna be able to build, we wanna build a,
Right.
we're gonna protect.
So one thing you could do is you could talk to the owner and ask him to put a permit request in to the planning board under this to see if he could get a permit. And I believe the permit could then be assigned to you as potential purchaser.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
And that way you can get if he's really determined to sell it to you, I mean,
Right.
if this is too much trouble and he's got a line of buyers, other buyers out there, he's not gonna do it, but,
Right, yeah. Oh, that's an interesting thought, yeah.
But we need everything on paper, like, so we can see, I'm still not totally, from what it sounds like to me, what I'm making this really too simple is, there is a potentially a usable piece of property there. It's just a question of how big it is and where it is,
Right.
and if it's big enough, you don't even get a shot at the exception.
Right.
If it's not big enough, you get a shot at the exception, but I don't know if they apply or not, like we haven't really gone through that. Until I see that zone, I don't know.
Who determines where that?
I think you have to hire somebody, like a surveyor, or, like, I don't know, I mean, you could do it yourself,
We
but,
can measure 100 feet back from the road, that part I got,
yeah.
but then, I don't know how to.
But where's the bank?
Because it's very sloped, so to say, it's gonna be 200 feet horizontal, right? It's not like up the bank and across and through the field and over the brook, it's a horizontal measurement, right?
Right.
So, because it's sloped and wooded, I wouldn't be able to begin.
Well, I think that's why those surveyors have the special equipment that they can account for topographical changes.
And I think your GIS map kind of confirms what I was able to sort of rudimentarily figure, was the distance from the road to the zone, to the wetland at about 400 feet, and then when you subtract out that 250 and the 100 setback from the road, it is such a tiny little.
Which means you may be eligible for the exception because it's not big enough for you to build outside of the RP zone. So then we would go through the exception issues and you'd have to show us, the burden's on you, to show us that all these exceptions apply, and then we would make a determination whether or not to do it. I don't know why it says may, because if the exceptions apply, I don't know why I would say no, but, But we can't do that until you own the property, because we can't do it in theory. And
Right,
we would really need
Need to
to
own a
see, we need to see it like something that we could rely on, like a scaled drawing.
so hypothetically, if there was a small sliver, say 50 by 100 foot space, very narrow, and then we had some plan, could we build on that and then add to it this 1,500 feet that would go into the resource protection?
We'd have to go through the factors on, like, I just don't know what the factors, like, does it, and the thing I was just thinking about, does it make more sense to go into the 100-foot buffer on the road versus going into the resource protection buffer? I don't know which one of those wins out in that discussion.
Right,
Or do you go 50-50? I don't know.
well, and it's the DEP that makes the decision about getting into the resource protection, right, or is it you folks?
It looks like it's us.
Right, okay. All right, thank you.
I still am not satisfied that we don't have a way to actually figure out the feet of where, I mean, I know we talked about it when we did that map, like, how does somebody know, whether this tree is in or that tree is out?
It's scary, actually.
What little work I've done on this, it's been a matter of plant ID, where your edge of your water is has to do with the plants growing there, not with where the water is. And, cause that can change from month to month, but the plants are there.
Sure.
And, it's acceptable to measure along the ground, because people have to come up with a measurement.
Right.
And, not everybody's 50 feet tall and able to do all that. So it's got to be able to be done.
Within reason, though.
Within reason.
Yeah.
If you have a slope of 2 or 3%, you can measure.
Yeah.
I've taken a steeper slope and taken a 20-foot stick and horizontal up, plumb my bob, and then measure again, and plumb my bob down.
It's super great. Wait, who is the person who goes and looks and says, well, these plants, so that is,
Somebody who is trained, usually the CEO is trained in how to do that.
okay. So if the CEO is not trained, no offense, I'm not trained in that, but who else would do it? Does the DEP do that?
Well, you can hire a biologist to do it.
Biologist?
Yeah,
I bet you if you called DEP and said,
Don't tell me.
this is what I'm trying to do, they can probably provide you some resources on how to be more precise with that.
Okay.
We've never had the question, so I've never asked the question. Although we did talk about it, I remember we talked about it, and we said, this puts people on notice, and they have to go figure it out.
That was a government deal, wasn't it?
Well, the
Federal government.
state said, this is what has to happen, and the federal government said, this is what has to happen, and the state said, this is what the federal government said. So we created that map, and that was what they told us we had to do, but then actually translating that to the ground is the next step.
The interesting thing is that map was created totally by aerial survey.
That's right.
Right.
It's all by satellite.
Yeah, exactly. So if we were smart enough, we would know how to give you your answer by a satellite image.
But she would be able to disprove that by on the ground.
Exactly,
Biologist says,
yes.
the biologist says the line is here, and I'm gonna stake my credentials on it,
Yep.
and then I would trust that over that map.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna ask one more question, then I'll leave it at that. This says that if there's nothing on the lot, well, if we have a multi-stage project, we're gonna start with, storage with the barn for ourselves, and then down the road, we wanted to build something else, then
You wouldn't get the
you
exception.
wouldn't get the exception, right, so.
Because you're
It's
making
a
it
one-shot deal.
Yeah, you're making it more non-conforming, so to speak. Not using that definition.
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to, if I had a chance to wedge in there, suggest that if you're going for a storage shed, also make a provision for, a summer camp or something also, because, 10 or 15 years down the road, you might wanna make a summer camp there.
Right,
So include that right in,
include that in the original,
But how long is your building permit good for?
2 years.
So you'd have 2 years.
Well, no, not to build a permit, but the ruling of the land use as being a rural district.
I don't know how long these
Yeah.
exceptions last, I mean, that's,
I don't think that's
I didn't look at that.
32.
They don't.
well, yeah, and then there has to be a collective memory.
Yeah, you
No, we can't write it down and put it in a
You only
file.
get, you only get a year.
Oh, you got a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, permit shall expire 1 year from the date of issuance if substantial start has not been made in construction.
Mhm. Okay,
So if you make substantial, you only get another year.
right, okay.
So I would do it, or if you can put a removable shed in that 50-foot area, if it's removable, it's not a structure. I don't know if that. Do it, that's right. What's the exception say? Undeveloped. Now, if you clear the spot and put a shack, you probably would be considered developed. So, go forth at your own risk.
Okay.
Were we at least marginally helpful here? Or is
Sure,
this- okay.
yeah.
We'll send you the standard customer satisfaction survey. I hope they were 4s at least.
Thank you.
So, next on the agenda, very nice to meet you, by the way. So
You don't have to stay.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I can't, actually.
So we've got through number 3. Now we're to number 4. A brief discussion of Nature's Wilderness LLC. The applicant requested that they be put on the agenda. At the time the agenda was made, no final CUP application had been submitted, so I did not invite Lee J. Feldman to attend. The request was from Scott Efron. Nature's Wilderness requested to be on the agenda. Can you note for the record that Mr. Pierce has recused himself voluntarily? 3 items have been, so the email says 3 items have been completed. The boundary survey was previously presented on attachment 12 of the November 15th, 2018 submission, and is adequate per their engineer and survey company for map 7 lot 22. Planning board has received a copy of the road agreement and the insurance binder. So I agreed to put them on the agenda, but I also said that since the application had not been received, I assumed it would be a very short discussion. And then earlier today, I got an email from Jeff Amos, which I'll put in the record. Mr. Amos said that they sent over an electronic version earlier of Nature's Wilderness Project. I'll come back to it. It was 2 links. We'll try to get those on the town's website so everybody has access to them, but I need to make sure that's okay before we do that, but we'll come back to that. This is Mr. Amos. I didn't want to clutter up the cover letter with unnecessary information, but I think it's important to note that the applicants have decided to limit all trail activity, both hiking and ATVs, to map 7 lot 22. The applicant is of the belief that visitors will have no issue being, quote, limited, end quote, to 400 plus acres included in map 7 lot 22. They really won't know the difference. We updated the trail map to correspond with this decision. The boundary survey now corresponds with the limits of the proposed campground activities. You asked for 3 items at the last meeting: consolidated application with page numbers, road construction agreement between town of Baldwin and applicant, and 3, the boundary survey that covers the extent of campground activities. I believe you have all 3 things. If you'd like to send Lee J. Feldman a hard copy, if you'd like us to send him a hard copy, please let us know. I responded to Mr. Amos saying, Jeff, your statement is incorrect. We asked for a boundary survey that covered the entire 860 acres, and I already sent Mr. Feldman the links that you provided. So that was earlier today. So since then, we've had, they sent us the link for the final application, which is pretty lengthy. I briefly looked at it today. I'd like to post those links on the town website. Do you know if that's something that's okay with Mr. Amos?
I'll double check with him. I don't see why it'd be an issue. Let me
Okay.
call him tomorrow.
Yeah, I just don't know, like, traffic and, you know, if it's too much traffic, I don't know what those links, I mean, I know what they are, but I don't know if that's something that he wants significant traffic to. If not, we'll have to figure out another way to do it.
I'll call him tomorrow and have him email you.
Okay. So I have some stuff, but you asked for the meeting, so so he's off camera, Jerry Brown, representative of Nature's Wilderness. What did you want to talk about?
We wasn't ready to talk tonight because we're confused of why you want a survey for all the acres when it's only on map 7, lot 22.
Yeah, so, the owner of the project continues to advertise the Nature's Wilderness project as being over 860, or over 800 acres. And we've talked about this repeatedly, that, you know, he's putting it out there as a 800 plus acre project, and so we want to see the entirety of that 860 acres.
So the website's been changed. It does not say that anymore. The application is asking for lot 22. Trails are on that property. That's it.
Yeah, so the website still does say,
No, not after yesterday. It does not.
so I printed this at 2 o'clock today, and it says, about, the about page on the Facebook, it says, natural class A RV resort and campsite destination where your mind, body, and soul will relax on 860 plus acres of land in Maine.
I called the website designer yesterday. It was removed from the title where it said Nature's Wilderness. It said the acreage. He was supposed to remove it from everywhere on the website.
I just, you know, Gary, it's just, yeah,
I made the call. Again, that's one sentence that he missed. It's out of the description. It's out of the top. And again, you know, I'm gonna get flack to this. What does his website have to do with the ordinance? Nothing. What has to do with the ordinance is our application, what we're actually going to do. I have changed the website. It's not on it.
Scott Efron's LinkedIn page says he's the owner of a campground, over 866 beautiful acres. I mean, we're just, you know, you may come in here with festive intentions, but Mr. Efron is continuing to say that he has this 800 plus acre, and I don't even know where the 800 acres, that's one thing I wanted to talk about today. I don't even know how he gets 860 acres, but we can talk about that in a second, but, we can't have your project put up a fence around whatever you're applying for right now, it doesn't seem feasible to have a chain link fence across 400 and whatever acres you're asking to have a project over. The applicant, the owner, has repeatedly said he's gonna use 800 plus acres for this project. Short of putting up a fence, I just don't know how, you get the permit and all of a sudden 400 additional acres become available to people to hike. Like, how are you gonna police that? How are you gonna stop that?
All we can do is put up signs and say end of campground property.
It goes back to the credibility issue that we've talked about many times with you. It's just not credible.
I did call him for the website change. He must have missed that one, but it doesn't say in the title anymore where it said in the front, all the acreage. That's been taken out. I've switched every website thing you've asked me to. I guess he missed one. I'll call him tomorrow and that will be gone. But again, the website really doesn't have anything to do with the ordinance. It's a personal thing.
Well, it does though, because it's Mr. Efron saying,
But
I guess this is the issue, Gary, is you come in here and we take you at face value. And we try to work with you. And it feels like you go back and you tell Mr. Efron, this happened, that happened, and he's like, no, whatever it is. So I almost want Mr. Efron to sign off on, a statement that there's no intent and there will be no use outside of the CUP, that there'll be no use of the other parcels that he owns in that area. And that until he signs something that has some sort of finality, I feel like we're not getting the truth of what he intends to do. You may intend to do what is in the application. I'm taking you at face value. I just don't feel like he's on the same page as you or the application. That's the sense I get.
isn't the application what matters?
No.
What the application does?
No, what matters is that Mr. Efron is going to follow the conditional use permit that he's applied for. That's what's important. And so far, we talked about last time that there's all these uses on the website that Mr. Efron says are gonna happen that aren't in the application. And so I went, he changed the picture, but I went to it again to see, I looked at the application, I said, well, they must not be doing things like, quadding and other things, but that's still, quad trails, dirt bike trails, those are things that, I don't see any quadding to the ATV. It just feels like Mr. Efron is not on the same page as what we're getting, and so.
ATV and quadding is the same thing. The application says quad. Or ATVs.
So I guess how can we be assured that Mr. Efron is on board with this?
On board with
Your
being
application.
compliant?
Your application.
Because that's what we have to adhere to when we're open, is the application. If we're not, we're in violation. We're basing everything on what ifs right now. What actually happens is what matters.
You guys have anything?
I'm just frustrated. I just don't know how to deal with this.
I'm just trying to keep track of everything right now.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, this was the wrong meeting.
Well, it's video, so we can always go back and watch. So let's go about this a different way. Maybe we can talk about this a different way. So, the lot, was it map
7, lot 22,
map 7, lot 22? So,
423 or 26.
So Mr. Efron also owns map 7, lot 23A, correct?
Yes.
And he also owns, or Nature's Wilderness also owns map 7, lot 29. And he also owns, or Nature's Wilderness also owns map 11, lot 98A and 98, right? Is there anything else that Mr. Efron or anybody associated with Mr. Efron or Nature's Wilderness owns? That's near this?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. Cause Bob Sheeran said at one point he owns some property.
Bob Sheeran?
Robert Sheeran, the lawyer, he said he owns some property. Didn't it? You remember he said he owns some property?
Yep, we did.
Yeah, he said he owns a property adjacent.
That's.
You're not aware of that?
No, I'm
Okay.
not aware of that.
Okay. All right, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 parcels that Mr. Efron owns, or Nature's Wilderness owns. Right?
I believe so. I'm aware of this property.
Right, but
Yes, I know that they're there, yeah.
yeah, all right. So you're saying that Mr. Efron is comfortable with us precluding any use on this property moving on to these properties? Like, as part of the conditions, that anything that happens here could not transfer over to these areas.
As far as commercial use of the campground, I would say so, yeah.
Well, it would be any use arising out of this because this is a commercial lot. So if people hike over here, that would be a commercial use. If people ATV over there from this lot, that would be a commercial use. That come from the camp to the other lot, that's a commercial use because the campground is a commercial use, so the ancillary uses or accessory uses arising out of that are also commercial uses. You see my problem. I mean, this is my concern is that Mr. Efron is going to say 11, 98, 98A can be used for hiking, ATVing, and can be added to the trail system of map 7, lot 22. And from our perspective, that is using that lot for an accessory use for this campground. And so that's why we want the entirety. If he's gonna allow that use, that has to be part of the permit application. So if he's not going to allow it, we're gonna need assurances from him that that's not gonna happen. So that's why I'm trying to be very clear about what we're doing. So if he doesn't have if none of the uses are gonna overlap into those areas, we're gonna need assurances from him that that's accurate.
Right, and that's to say we'll close the end of the campground property.
No, but I need assurances from him. Like, I'm gonna need him to sign something to say, yes, I, Scott Efron, understand that 11, 98A and 98 may not be used in conjunction with the campground activities. Hard stop.
Okay. That's something him and the lawyer's gonna have to talk about. I'm not gonna answer that one.
But that's where we're starting from. Like, we need to know that before we start this, because
So what limitations you saying? Like, if a camper comes, he stays on the property, it's fine. If I'm on the property and I ride off, is that a violation?
I don't know where you're riding, I don't know what
Well, that's what I'm saying.
capacity you're sitting there.
If I'm on, map 7, lot 22,
Who are you?
me, Gary Brown,
Doing what?
on Scott's property,
As his employee?
or on a weekend as a friend. and I ride off on the other property, is that a violation?
Well, if you're on the property for any commercial activity associated with that property, then if you move off of that property, the question is, why are you moving off of that property? If it's to use an adjoining parcel, then that would be a commercial use of an adjoining parcel.
I can see your argument with if a camper comes out and rides around all the trails. I agree with you on that. But it's gonna be hard to limit to what we can and can't do. Just like you read, the paper you had me sign about commercial and recreational.
Ask you this time, but you wouldn't sign.
Yeah, no, and I won't.
Right.
That's locking us down to, I agree with the commercial part.
But that's what we're trying to do, Gary, is we're trying to figure out what's going on.
You need to tell me exactly what I'm being limited to before I can ask him to sign anything. When you tell me what I'm limited to, if you're saying all trespassing off the property, we obviously can't sign that. But if we put it as campground use, we can work with you. We can work on that.
But what is there besides campground use?
That's what I'm asking. I'm confused about.
No, but you seem to think that there's two big pots. And I see one massive pot of like thousands of people and maybe 6 people over in this non-commercial use pot. But I just don't get the sense you see it that way. I think you see it 500 here, 500 there, 500 friends throughout the year versus 500 campers throughout the year. I just don't understand why you're thinking there's all this non-commercial use of that.
I am confused about it, and that's why I'm trying to figure out.
So help me understand what would happen on map 7, lot 22 that was not commercial?
If I brought some friends over and rode the trails.
Why would you ride the trails? Only invited guests. You told us only guests of the campground get to use the campground facilities.
Only invited guests?
You said only guests.
Yes.
So if somebody is staying there, they get to use the facilities. I never understood you to say that if somebody is staying there, they can invite others to join them in those activities. So if one person is running a cabin, my understanding has always been they cannot invite 20 of their friends to go fishing on your pond.
Right.
So the invited guest issue, I'm not following you on that. So if you're a guest here, then yes, you'd be precluded from going off of that property as the application is now submitted. So if you're on the property, so why are you on the property?
As an employee or a friend.
Okay, so if you're an employee on the property, then yes, your use would be limited. So who else, I guess I just don't understand who else would be in this bucket of non-commercial?
That's tough is I'm limited as an employee, I'm limited as a campground official to go on the other property.
To engage in campground-related activities on the other property, yeah. And we're just talking here. There's no condition. We're not talking to the board. These guys haven't said yes, yes, yes or anything, but I'm just trying to understand what you guys are doing.
Nothing.
Because, so Scott Efron is going to, is he gonna have a residential house on this property?
Yep.
So I would imagine if he wants to go ride his whatever on outside the campground property, he's not there for any campground purpose, right?
What if he's there as Scott Efron campground owner?
But he has a residential house, so I'm giving you that. But beyond that, who else is gonna be on the property who are not there because it's a campground?
I'll be honest, I guess that's a legal question, because I don't know. There's too many stipulations on that to answer on it, honestly.
But that goes to the core of what we're trying to do. Do you guys agree?
I understand what you're saying. It basically, you guys seem to think that, if you invite 50 of your buddies over, you can just tear around and do.
That's what we've been doing before the application gets accepted. Once it's a campground, it's a campground. Yes, we're inviting friends over now. It's private property. a campground, it's gonna be a campground, it's not gonna be a racetrack, it's gonna be a campground. We need to move on from whatever's been going on, said, done over the past, that poor dead horse has been beaten to pieces, we've all argued about that.
No, he's not bringing that up. He's saying that it sounds like what you wanna do is to say, there's these campground people who are relegated to map 7, lot 22, but then there's this other group of people that you may bring some friends on who can go farther and go into map 11, lot 20, map 11, lot 98A and not A. The campers can't go in there, but your buddies can go in there. And how would we ever know the difference between those people?
Exactly, so how can I say yes or no either way? I'm telling you, the campers will post at the end of the property, campground property ends here.
Right, but the only reason you're bringing your buddies over to this parcel is because there's a campground there. Like, why wouldn't you just go over to 98 and go there?
We could.
So how does Scott get to 866 acres? Because when you add all these parcels up, it doesn't come up to 866.
What does it come up to?
About 700, a little less than 700.
Okay, there must be a piece missing or bad math, I don't know. I have to check the tax maps and see. I'm only dealing with map 7, lot 22 with the campground is.
So the other concern is that the diagram, the survey that was submitted is for 409 acres, and the tax map says it's 452. So I don't know what that variation is. So it's I don't have the submission in front of me, but it's like 409.2, I think is what the survey says. So I'm confused at where the missing acreage is on the survey versus the,
I would say the survey is more accurate than the old tax map, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, I just like that. I'd like you to be able to speak to that so we can understand why there's a difference there. And then I would go back to the uses. Again, I'm still concerned that the uses that Mr. Efron seems to want on there are not all in the permit application. So I'm just going to remind you again that we're going to.
I thought we changed the website to adhere to what is in the application. What's troubling you that's not in the application that you're seeing still?
I'm just not,
It
the fact that.
was all switched the last meeting.
So will you sign that, will you have Mr. Efron sign that agreement that he's not doing certain activities?
Which on the list you gave me last week?
Right.
No, because that was too limited.
So amphitheater, horse stables.
I have no problem with the amphitheater, I have
Rental
no
of
problem with the horse stable. I have no problem with after the campground shut down, you can't use the property at all for
Correct.
recreational snowmobiling, no. If I wanna ride on that property when the campground shut down, I'm riding on that property.
It says commercial snowmobiling activities, commercial activities outside of the designated dates of operation.
Is commercial or, say,
So if let's talk about how to reform that language. So when you say you're snowmobiling, so it wouldn't be the use of any of the campground facilities. You would just be riding across the trail.
All the buildings are shut down, they're not winterized, everything is gonna be, the campground is open 7 months out of the year, then it shuts down.
But there'd be no group activities on the campground outside the designated dates of operation. There'd be no organized activities. There'd be no snowmobile racing, there'd be no, inviting people onto the property to use the property. It would be through snowmobiling where you would drive through the
No,
property.
we are gonna ride on the property, not just through, we're gonna ride, there's loops we can ride on, there's a pond we can ride on. We will be riding on the pond.
In an organized fashion where people congregate in group fashion.
Friends get together, whatever it is. It's not illegal. at
No,
all.
but you're asking to use it, you haven't asked for that. Like,
I'm not asking to use
I
it
don't
for
understand
commercial,
why
for
we're.
campground use.
But that is a campground use, if you have a group of people congregating to use the facility.
The land, the campground is shut down. The land is a whole different, that's a different argument for different time.
It's
Yeah.
not, because
You gave me 3 things to come up with last week. I did it. Now what?
anybody have any ideas on the board? Come back to us. Anything, Wes?
Two things. In the issue about running the campgrounds and having ATVs running around and where the border or the boundary, and Gary said we're gonna post the boundaries and try to keep the campers from crossing that. I think that's adequate. It's like Walmart or Hannaford shopping that has parking lots and no parking areas, and there's still people parking in no parking areas. Human nature and social science is not a perfect science. And so if they put up signs to limit and people cross that, they're doing it on their own and they're violating it. It's not that the campground owners or organizers have failed.
I agree with you, Wes, but the problem is that the campground has brought those individuals to that location. And so they have an obligation to their neighbors to prevent people from trespassing on neighboring land. So I think it's more than, gosh be golly, it's the individual's fault. I think the campground has an affirmative obligation, 1. 2, he's saying that those rules don't apply to some people on that site.
It's like creating a law that's unenforceable. So people are not supposed to text in the car, but they do. You can't enforce it. Same idea with the sign. Unless you have somebody standing right there next to the sign enforcing, you can't enforce it.
Or gate.
You hope most people are honest.
Gate,
Simple as that.
that kind of stuff.
Okay. Second part about using the area for private personal activities. The campground is a campground for 7 months from April 1st to October 31st. After that, it's land that's not being utilized as a campground. The commercial end of it is closed and dormant, and therefore it's just empty space that friends, owners, and owners use it to do what they have. If they have.
But how many friends are how many friends becomes a commercial use? So if I invite 1,000 of my friends over I'm asking the question seriously, because you're bringing up the exact point he's saying. At what point does that group gathering of friends become a commercial use?
When money's involved. If money's not involved.
Whose money? Like, whose money? Like, So if you have 1,000 people there, nobody pays any money, it's not a commercial activity?
That's right, because they aren't paying money to an organizer or to somebody who has created the existence of the event.
But I created this place where a lot of people are coming to gather.
But the place is
Okay.
closed. It's nothing.
And it's
But
logical
the
to
people
use
shouldn't be
1,000
there if
people
it's
as.
closed. I guess that's the part I'm not understanding.
Okay.
If it's closed, why is there a gathering of people
So
using?
it's logical to use
facilities.
1,000 people as an example to debate, but we know 1,000 people aren't gonna gather, you know.
We have Watercross, 1,500 people.
Did it happen? Did they show up? No, didn't happen. We're still stuck on this, David. We gotta look at
That's
the
my opinion.
application. You gave me 3 things last week we complied with. We were supposed to be told if we were gonna be complete or not.
Sure.
It happened a couple times.
No, you've
The-
never
the what-
submitted a complete application. Do not say you've submitted a complete application, because you have never submitted a complete application. And if you say you did, you're not telling the truth. That's the point that really gets my goat.
I just, I'd like to address something because it's a follow-up to, the report that, Wes submitted, was it from activities over there 2 weekends ago, it was 2 weekends ago, I wasn't home. but
2, 3, yeah.
2 or 3 weekends ago, and I checked on Wes's report, and it turns out that in order to operate a snowmobile on someone else's land in the state of Maine, the snowmobile must be registered. And that you invalidate the registration if you modify the exhaust system. So, what happened was that Gary gave 4 people permission to behave illegally on Scott Efron's land. So I wanted to put that out there because I hear that, the roguishness of the applicant is all in the past. And I just want to point out that within the last month, they have been encouraging illegal behavior.
So noted. So, I mean, what I'd recommend to the board is to, have Lee J. Feldman come in next meeting, make a determination whether the application is complete or not, and then address the application, in a formal way. I feel as though we have given the applicant every opportunity to present a forthright, honest, complete application, and we've exhausted that preliminary attempt to do so. And if the application is somehow deficient, in its content, that we can deal with that on the other side. I don't mean deficient in the sense of complete or not complete, but I mean deficient in the sense of not providing the information that we need to make a decision or to get conditions, that we should deal with that on the other side of accepting a complete application. I'd like Mr. Feldman's thoughts on that, but deal with it on that side of the fence rather than continuing to try to work with the applicant to get an application that is,
Basically, including the conditions that we want to a completed application.
well, so we accept the application as complete, and then we have to have a site walk, and then we public meeting, and then we address these types of conditions that we would feel warranted under the requirements of the ordinance. And we have tried very hard to ask the applicant to include all activities that they intend to do, but it's very clear at this point that the applicant's not going to do that. And so I think we have to deal with it on the other side of the process and
operative before we accept it as complete.
Before we issue this,
Well, we've got another several meetings to discuss what conditions are necessary and it's not a one-step process. I mean, it's gonna be as you saw, Leaf J. Feldman had a 20 or 30 page conditional use permit draft. But I think we're gonna have to add some serious, based on the applicant's responses, I think we have to be super clear about what the applicant's permitted and not permitted to do based on the ordinance. And deal with it on that side, because we're not getting any additional help from the applicant.
If I may say that the last meeting, you asked Mr. Brown if there was a more recent survey than the 1995 survey, and I believe he said yes, there was.
No, Mr. Amos said yes.
Yes, Mr. Amos said yes?
Yeah.
And you asked for that survey, and that you did not get, and that was what you were asking for, not a resubmission of the 95 survey.
I
So all
agree.
three things were not submitted to.
I agree, but I think we need to deal with it on the other side.
That's fine.
Because I think conceptually, if the applicant's gonna take this approach, I think we can deal with it on the other side with conditions, rather than continuing to wait for the applicant to do what we've asked them to do. I think they've submitted an application, it's just, I don't think it's for what they're actually asking for, but that's not our issue at this point, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think it's the right move, but that's what the applicant's asking us to do, so. You guys agree?
So you would ask Mr. Feldman to review all the new data that's been provided, and he would make an assessment about whether it was complete or not?
Yeah, and then we would make we talk to him to see if we think it's complete. And I think my gut is that it's complete for what it is, but it's not what he's asking. What I think he's asking for is not what's in this document, but they're asking for something in this document. I think it's probably complete for that purpose. So in other words, so they don't ask for any water cross activities. So I would foresee precluding any water cross activities whatsoever on this development, because it wasn't asked for. Now, I think he wants to do water cross activities, but he hasn't asked for it, so let's just move forward. Same with ATV racing, same with a bunch of other things that are not included in the application. Let's just deal with the application that's in front of us, and we can handle the shortcomings of the application by precluding activities that are not requested, rather than waiting for him to actually include those. And we can work with the lawyer to define exactly what's commercial and non-commercial, and the impact on these adjoining properties, rather than waiting for him to figure out what they want to do on those adjoining properties. And then he just has to come back, so the adjoining landowner can come back and get a permit application for activities, if they want to do activities on those parcels. I think he's not gonna do it, so.
I'm not gonna do what?
Uh,
I'm not gonna adhere to our application, is that what you're saying?
No, you're not going to provide any information or include the adjoining properties in the proposed use.
No, the campground is on Act 7, Lot 22.
Right. And so we'll have to take steps to ensure that is reality. That it can be enforced, to Wes's point, that it's enforceable, that it covers all commercial uses, and that the adjoining landowners are protected from any abuse from the campground's use. We've just historically been able to work with people on the front end to have to avoid.
What have I done not to work with you? Everything you asked for, I put in here and do.
so we have a fundamental disagreement, Gary, about what is commercial and what's not commercial. And I was hoping that we could work that out before we go through this process, because it's clear we're not. So let's just go for it. We agree? All right. So we'll put you on the agenda for the next meeting. We'll determine the completeness of the application at that time. Once it's complete, then we'll schedule the site walk and probably a series of meetings as well as the public hearing. And work through the conditions that the ordinance requires. Can your organization produce paper copies of the application so we can have a few here to look at?
Yeah.
All new ones, all
Is it? Okay, perfect.
you asked for,
Is that with the updated trail map or the old trail map?
updated trail map, everything is new and current.
Excellent.
Well, nothing new, same information, just organized numbers as you asked for.
Dwight, can we get a opinion of whether or not the what's the side road? Deacon Road. Can we get an opinion as to whether from the town lawyer or whoever, you guys can do it if you want, I don't care. I just want somebody to officially tell us whether or not any portion of the Deacon Road that is part of this property is a public road, a town road, I don't know what terminology is, town road.
Road law is so complicated, I wouldn't give it a name.
Whether or not the town has any rights to the Deacon Road that's from Marston Pond Road, up to some terminus wherever it ends, I don't know where it ends, but, we just need to know how to deal with it, and I don't know if it's a town road, somebody has to tell us. So, the selectman is a natural place to ask that question.
I can't tell you if it's been discontinued or not.
No, I figure you'll have to research it, I mean, that's, and you may need an opinion from David Laurie. We'll probably need David Laurie for multiple meetings on this. Not the first meeting, but after that, we'll probably need David Laurie present, because we're
I think we're gonna get down to the nitty-gritty again.
I think we're gonna get down to the nitty-gritty pretty quick, so.
Yeah, we can move forward.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out where we can move that.
We'll probably need some assistance on the, getting the notices out to Dwight, who all the abutters are. This is a pretty massive piece of property, so if there's any way we can utilize some administrative time to get those names, it'd be really appreciated. Because, I mean, just guesstimate, we're talking 100 people, I mean.
On 100 people on the adjoining property? Alright, we'll take a look.
I think so. I mean, can you look at it? We can send 3 of them to Nature's Wilderness.
Yeah.
And the entire length of Marston's Road is, town property, right?
It's town road,
And so how wide is that road? What's the width
20 feet,
from center line? So 40 total or 10 on each side?
10 on each side.
Okay. And is that, so that goes up against the water, right? Like the water?
No.
Dwight, excuse me, I'm sorry.
At what time
I
it was.
think there was a state law that made all town roads that were under 3 rods, made them all 3-rod roads.
I'll have to look into it and make sure. I know
That,
a 3-rod road is most of our roads, like
yeah,
the mountain road and stuff like that's a 3-rod road.
yeah.
What's it mean to be a 3-rod road?
Okay,
Road is the one.
a rod is 16.5 feet. 3-rod roads is 49.5 feet, that's why right of ways are 50 feet.
So I think there's a state law that made all town roads 3-rod roads,
We'll look at that.
but, yeah.
So I need somebody from the town to tell me that too, or tell the board, I'm sorry, I'm speaking of me, I apologize. But I need, because that's gonna be a no-use zone, obviously, if there's a right-of-way through there, so how wide that no-use zone is probably gonna be pretty important. And whether it's a 20-foot road or a 3-rod road, that would go right up against the water, so the water would be,
Are you talking about Marston Road now?
yeah,
Yeah. That'd be 25 feet either side of the center line, which close to the water, but not to, outside. 25 feet is not very much, it's 6 meters. 7 feet.
yeah. That's an interesting question. So,
So if the road's not adequate, and what you're saying, is that something for the applicant to fix, or the town needs to fix it to make it?
no, not about adequate, just making sure that there's no use and,
The roadway doesn't have to be 3 rods. The land adjacent to the road, or running along the road, is part of the 3 rods.
right, so you can't build stuff in that zone because the town has a right to put utilities there, or snow plow, or widen the road if it wants to, like, you can't have any permanent use of that road by a landowner because that's a right of way.
I often describe to landowners about that as a no man's space. The road department puts guardrails, speed signs, things like that. You put your mailbox out there, maybe a shrub or something.
Right, when I put rocks out there, Gary Brown just flicked them into my driveway because we were in the right of way. All right, so that would be helpful. Anything else you guys can just think of off the top of your head that the town, it'd be nice for the town to tell us? You got the agreement. Is the work done on the road? Okay. Is there an estimated time of completion?
It'll be done before frost and winter hit. Yeah.
Okay. It's Washington versus,
I don't care, it's my fault.
is it? Oh, it is, oh my gosh, okay. Okay, so we failed to accomplish the last task. Before we adjourn, is there anything else that we can accomplish at this meeting? Yes.
I talked to a Patrick Jackson tonight, lined him up to come here next meeting on the 14th of November.
Actually, Patrick Johnson?
I had mentioned maybe a month and a half ago, he's considering starting a solar farm.
What was his last name?
Johnson.
Jackson.
Jackson, okay.
And so,
I don't remember him.
I recommended that he come before the planning board to have just a nice conversation what the scope of his project is and what he's gonna do, and I'll initiate a CUP application. He's already lining up Tobago Techniques for their engineer, so,
Perfect.
lining that up. Second thing is, I see we don't have a secretary yet, like we thought of before.
We tried, yeah.
I gave a thought during the week, we have a new young assistant clerk next door, Robin. Might try to approach her and see if she's interested. I haven't said a word about it.
Where is this?
Robin, she's an assistant to.
How many hours? Is she full-time? So you'd have to pay her overtime. So that's expensive.
Plus, we really haven't decided whether, I was for it, Joe was against it, one everyone said one way or the other, so.
Just a thought.
But we haven't readdressed it at all.
Okay.
I talked to
After
Danielle,
tonight-
she's going up and doing it.
Okay. That's why I didn't say anything to anybody else.
I'll try to come in and have a chat with her just to gauge her interest, but if she works 40, then it would be overtime, so I'd just be concerned about the cost. We can talk about that. That's
Okay.
Anything else that we can accomplish, or try to accomplish? All right, so we can talk to Mr. Johnson next meeting. We'll have Nature's Wilderness. I'm probably going to allot an hour for Nature's Wilderness, because I don't want Nature's Wilderness to take over the next 15 meetings or whatever, I'm making that up, but, so, I'll give an hour to Nature's Wilderness, so please come prepared, knowing the application, so we can talk through completeness. That's really what we're talking about, completeness. Does it have everything in there that we want to see, and that's required by the ordinance? And then,
And can we send a copy to Lee J. Feldman so we can wrap his head around it before the next meeting?
I already forwarded him the links, and he's already looked at it.
Okay.
I have to make sure he's available. Yeah, so if he's not available, we will not have it on the agenda. Now, let me back that up. Let me see if he's available. We may still have it on the agenda, because we really need to do a site walk before snow, so we'll figure that out. All right, I'll entertain it.
Motion adjourned.
All in favor? Good to go.